In this video, we're going to focus on Fazortan 2, the controllable space phaser. So what is a phaser? Well, so far we've had a look at the flanger, and a bit later on we're going to look at a chorus. Now these both work on a modulated delayed signal which is added in. A phaser doesn't actually work on a delayed signal at all, but instead what it does is it creates a difference in the phase relationship between the wet and the dry signal. And it does that by utilizing an all-pass filter. And as the sound passes through the all-pass filter, certain frequencies are going to get phase shifted. And then the output is mixed back in. And when these two signals combine, the dry signal and the all-pass filtered signal, you're going to get little kind of notches in the frequency spectrum that are formed by this phase discrepancy. So let's have a look at how this is implemented within Fazortan 2. So first of all, let's just bypass it. We've got a little project here. Just a basic little loop to work with. Now, as we have come to expect, presets located up here, filter here, factory and user presets located there, previous and next here, and we can save from here as well. So we could just go through and try the presets out. So really, really nice sounding phaser. Now I should say this is an emulation of a 70s kind of guitar stomp box effect phaser. I think it's an Electro Harmonix small stone. From the description on the website, it sounds like that phaser that's been emulated. Because as they say in the description, the original unit only had a color and a rate knob, whereas there's a lot more, parameters that can be changed on Fazortan 2. So by that description, it sounds like it's this classic phaser from 1976. Okay. So let's dive in and look at the parameters of Fazortan 2. Now we're actually going to start over in the phaser section here. This is the kind of heart of the plugin. You see it's got a different color. It's kind of the most important area of the plugin in some ways. So as I said, this phaser creates an all-pass signal, which is used to generate the phasing effect. So basically it's like having a series of notch filters. Like if you have a notch filter on an EQ, it's a series of notch filters that can be evenly spread across the frequency spectrum. And the way this is done is controlled in this phaser section. So first of all, we have the stages. Now this is basically like the number of notches that are created. So it's kind of a more subtle effect with 2 stages and more pronounced with 8 stages. So it basically reflects the number of filters that are being used. The center frequency allows us to kind of move these filters through the frequency spectrum. Now, at the moment, we're hearing the LFO modulating this. I'm just going to switch this off for a second. So now we're just hearing the static phaser, essentially just the static phase discrepancies that are being introduced with these notch filters. But obviously we can sweep this using these 2 LFOs. So that's like we're moving the center frequency. Anyway, we're going to come back to that later. Now the dial underneath the stages is the feedback dial. And this allows us to route the phase shifter back into itself and basically emphasizes what these all-pass filters are doing. It kind of becomes like a resonance control essentially for the cutoff points. Let's sweep this so we can hear it. So a bit smoother. It's a bit more spiky sounding. That's the feedback dial. And then we have the stereo phase. Now this allows us to apply a phase shift between the left and the right hand channels. It's going to be a great way of adding some stereo width. Really, really nice. And that is the phaser section here. Now, as I said, we can modulate the center frequency using the LFOs, and we have 2 of these LFOs. So LFO 2 is down at the moment. Sweep control allows us to determine how much we're going to be sweeping this center frequency. So we're just using LFO 1 for now. So we have a very small amount of sweeping. Or we can really increase that so the amount of sweeping is greatly increased. Okay, so the LFOs are basically identical. We can sync them to the project tempo, and when we do, you see this section down here becomes illuminated. So you have the beat and bar values across here. This can be full, it can be dotted, it can also be triplets as well. And what's more, we have different waveform shapes to allow us to create different kinds of movement. Let's put this on full and sync it to the project tempo. So now we're moving the center frequency in 2 different positions, essentially. Speed it up a bit. So we can really create some interesting effects this way, and we have a kind of sample and hold setting as well, which is going to be spitting out random values. Super cool, could be used for a really, really kind of creative effect. And then, of course, as I said, we have 2 of these LFOs, so we can sweep them both if we want to. You can have different settings. Now we can hear LFO 2 kind of slowly sweeping. Let's bring LFO 1 back in. So really interesting. And then we have a dry wet balance. We can dial in how much we want and an output volume. So it's a pretty simple plugin, but as you can hear, hopefully it's an amazing sounding phaser, very easy to use, very quick to get something going, and just has that really nice, rich kind of analog sound to it. So in this video, we covered Fazortan 2. So remember, we have the phaser section here where we can set how many all-pass filters are going to be used. Remember, the all-pass filters means that we kind of blend a wet signal, which has got these all-pass filters that introduce phase discrepancies using these notch filters. And by sweeping these up and down using the center frequency, we get that kind of trademark phaser sound. This is the number of filters being used. Feedback is going to be like a resonance, so it feeds it back into itself so they get more pronounced. Stereo phase is going to introduce discrepancies between the left and right hand channel phase, creating nice stereo width. Then we have 2 LFOs, and the LFOs are there to modulate the center frequency. We can do that sync to project tempo using full notes, dotted or triplet notes, different waveform shapes, or we can do it in hertz if we have sync switched off. Both the LFOs are identical, and the sweep value is basically the modulation depth of how much we're going to modulate the center frequency. Dry wet balance, output volume, and output meter, and that is Fazortan 2. Okay, so we're going to carry on looking at the modulation effect from the D16 Silverline series in the next video, so I'll see you then. Thanks for watching.